Yeah, I mean, Stephanie, it's an awesome question, and I really appreciate it. You know, back when I was starting as an entrepreneur, I literally entrepreneurship saved my life. There's a whole backstory, but I ended up getting in a lot of trouble as a teenager. Ended up in jail twice by the time I was 17, and luckily for me, there was this guard Brian that spoke belief about my potential into me at a moment in my life where I had zero self-worth. And eventually I got released to a rehab center where I did 11 months of therapy and learned how to write computer code, which is a crazy story in itself, at the end of that program. And that my life changed and I just became an entrepreneur. I think I was always entrepreneurial, even prior, just unfortunately nothing legal or productive. My dad always joked. My dad used to say, he's like, if you could just find something you're passionate about that isn't illegal, I think you'd do okay with your life. Turned out he was pretty right. And, since then I've built a bunch of software companies that I've exited. I became a multimillionaire at 27. Today I coach some of the coolest software CEOs and non-software CEOs as, in my private practice. And what happened for me is as I was building companies, I kept growing and failing. Like at 17, I started a company called Maritime Vacation. That one, burnt to the ground by the time I was 19. Learned a lot of good lessons, did another company right after 2.5 years of essentially trying and failing and trying and failing. John Maxwell's got this great book, says sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. So I just got a lot of shots on goal, learning how not to shoot on goal. And what happened was when I was 23, almost 24, out of desperation, I just finished reading the book, The E-Myth, The Entrepreneurial Myth, by Michael Gerber, and decided I'm going to hire a business coach. And prior to that, I never had a coach. I never had anybody, honestly, didn't even have a mentor. I just was kept trying. And I wasn't even reading business books prior to that, which is kind of silly. And Bob, it was his name. He was a certified E-Myth coach. Bob literally taught me how to build a business. I was a hard worker. I was willing to show up, do the work, whatever he told me. He always joked that I had the fastest knowing doing gap. Like as soon as he told me something, I didn't even want to talk anymore. I was like ready to just, okay, can we finish the call? I'm going to go do that thing. And within the first year, we built almost $1 million company. And over the next 4 years, built a very, one of the fastest growing companies in Canada. And unfortunately, I was so fearful, Stephanie, of like taking my foot off the gas. I just didn't know what part of the thing I was doing, which was like actually move the needle versus everything else was just noise. And I was so scared that if I took my foot off the gas, I'd lose my edge and I'd be back right where I, ended up with my previous two companies. And unfortunately, I ended up getting in a relationship with another woman, and we got engaged, and, everything was pointing to, white picket fences and, children, all that fun stuff. And, one Sunday afternoon, I come home and I find my fiance in tears in the kitchen in a house we had just moved into about 7 weeks before the wedding. And she takes the ring off and she just says, I can't do this anymore. And she leaves me. And that just reset my whole identity of who I was, what I was doing it for. I used to make up this excuse that I'm doing it for our future. Why don't you understand, etc. And so I went from that and honestly almost resolving that maybe I just got to be okay with someday. There was two options. Either I'm going to be the quintessential rich uncle, never in a relationship, no kids, or I got to really work on myself to figure out how can I show up in a way that, because I was crazy driven, but I allowed myself it's like I swapped my addictions. I went from abusing substances to, getting addicted to the pace of the business, the pace of the work. And I would use it as excuses for just stupid. I mean, I went to my best friend's birthday party and I'm in his living room with my laptop, closing deals, sending contracts, reviewing resumes. And in my head, I'm thinking I'm the best friend in the world. Like I'm here and I'm so busy. And he's thinking to himself, like, Dan is silly. What is he doing? So I went from that to learning a completely different way. After I kind of got through that trauma, honestly, I worked with a therapist and worked through a lot of beliefs and, just habits that I had that just were not productive that I thought, really was my edge. And my success was in spite of all that stuff. And that's what I've learned since then. And I moved to San Francisco, kind of the heart of Silicon Valley, as a software entrepreneur. And that's where I learned a different way to build and scale companies. And the whole concept of the buyback principle started to materialize. This is almost, 13 years ago. And the idea is simple, is we don't hire people to grow our businesses. We hire people to buy back our time, because if we do the second, we get the first. But if we do the first, we don't always get the second. And I'm on a mission, Stephanie, to help entrepreneurs build companies they don't grow to hate.
Yeah.